Honourable members, are we ready? In the absence of a negative protest, I'm assuming, excuse me, that we are ready. Once again, welcome back, honourable members, to the second session. And apologies, I think, are in order for Ms. Tshabalala that we had, I know, scheduled you for 11:30, and thanks for bearing with us in that it's almost 2 hours after your scheduled time. Honourable members, we are going to proceed with the last witness for today. The process that will follow will be very much the same. We'll start with you, Advocate Vanara. And in the interest of fairness, we will start on the very far end. Mr. Singh, you'll prepare yourself to be the first. After Vanara has concluded his business. And honourable members, I am going to give you a warning 1 minute before your time is up. Otherwise, we're going to disrupt everybody's program. It's Friday, and some of us are migrant workers. We need to get flights, get back to our home base. So a minute before the time, I will warn you, and I will cut you short once your minute is up. As agreed to earlier on. Welcome, Ms. Tshabalala. Ms. Tshabalala was a previous board member, and she will obviously, I would assume, when Vanara gets involved, give us the time frames of when she actually was head of the SABC board. I am informed, Ms. Tshabalala, that you have agreed to take the oath.
Yes, Chair.
That being the case, please be informed that by law you are required to answer fully and satisfactorily all the questions lawfully put to you, or to produce any document that you are required to produce in connection with the subject matter of the inquiry, notwithstanding the fact that the answer or the documents could incriminate you or expose you to criminal or civil proceedings or damages. You are, however, protected in that evidence given under oath or affirmation before a house or committee may not be used against you in any court or place outside Parliament, except in criminal proceedings concerning a charge of perjury or a charge relating to the evidence or documents required in these proceedings. Ma'am, please raise your right hand and say, "So help me God."
What should I say, Chair? You said I should say?
Oh, I beg your pardon. I said if you could raise your right hand and say, "So help me God."
Should help me God.
Advocate Vanara, it's 2:05. We've agreed on the procedure, so over to you, sir.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning to you, ma'am. Can you please, for the record, state your full names?
Okay, my full names, thank you, is Ellen Tshabalala. Thank you.
You are a member of the SABC, a non-executive member of the SABC board, not the board, the interim board in 2013. Is that correct?
That is correct, sir.
And you were the chairperson of that interim board.
Yes, I was, Chair.
The board was eventually appointed, and you were appointed and still the non-executive chairperson of that board. Is that correct?
It's very correct, sir. Thank you.
That was in 2013.
That was when I got reappointed in a fully fledged board. It was 2014.
And of course, you did not finish that your term. You resigned as in
Yes,
December
I resigned
2014
December 2015.
or 2015.
2015.
Okay. As a non-executive member of the board, you of course had other businesses that you were charged with. You served in different boards. Is that correct?
That is correct, sir.
And you had your own business.
Yes, thank you.
Is it also correct that you were a non-executive chairperson of the board?
That is true, sir.
I would like us to discuss just 3 issues in the interest of time. It will be how the board handled the implementation of the Public Protector report. Secondly, how the board dealt with the appointment of the COO. And lastly, just your interaction with members of staff at the corporation. The Public Protector report, when governance and ethics fail, you are aware of that report?
I am, Your Honor.
That report did not necessarily deal with the challenges of the board that you were chairing, but dealt with what had happened to the prior board. Is that correct?
That is correct, sir.
So yours was just to implement the Public Protector's report. Is that correct?
I would have an input in that regard because we solicited legal advice just to address that particular point. I think I will address it when I address the Public Protector's input.
Sorry, ma'am, if you could just speak into the mic. I'm worried that we're not going to pick up everything, or just speak a bit louder.
My apologies, Chair. I'm saying that particular aspect, we held different views with members of the board. As a result, we solicited the legal advice in as far as, are these recommendations or are these, we have to take the recommendations as Bible. Thank you.
I will get to that. But the question that I asked was, yours was, you were not so much, you were not implicated in the report itself because you weren't there. Your focus was to deal with the implementation of the issues that emanated from the report. Is that correct?
I was implicated in the report, and it was a surprise for me that I am implicated. I'm a fairly new chairperson, and I'm implicated in areas of management that came all the way before I joined the board. Thank you.
Okay. Now, is it true that you had an office at the SABC?
That is true. It was the office of the chair and the deputy chair. Thank you.
And that you had an assistant assisting you in that office, is that correct?
Yes, seemingly this has been the design in SABC. There is a PA of the chair and deputy chair, and I found the lady working there, and I was appraised that she's going to take all the responsibility between us and the deputy chair.
the business that you were running, where were the premises? Where were you running that business from?
I have offices in Sandton, in Johannesburg, and in Cape Town, Long Street. Thank you.
So you're not running your businesses from the SABC offices?
Not at all, Your Honor. Thank you.
The report of the public protector, you received the interim report before you received the final report, is that correct?
We received the interim one years before. However, we were surprised at the behavior of the Office of the Public Protector to publish the report before we actually physically received the report. But yes, true, we received both.
When you say we, who are you referring to?
I'm referring to the board, which I was chairing.
So the board received the interim report. Who then dealt with that interim report?
We initially, through the company secretary, circulated the report immediately because we did understand that there are limitations of time. You know, we're given time to respond to the public protector by a certain time. So for that reason, we quickly assembled the Nominations and Governance Committee, which had to give guidance to the board on how to handle the report. And because I was implicated as well by the report, I requested the Deputy Chair, Professor Ngubane, to take the lead in delivering on the report.
There's evidence before this committee, and actually even the public protector report itself, says you, to the exclusion of other board members, dealt with the interim report as an executive chairperson.
That is not true. I do have evidence of all what preceded prior to us responding to public protector.
Now, who sat at this governance committee, subcommittee? Who were other members?
During the interim board, which I chaired, you will recall that there were very few members of the interim board. And one of the members who was key recused himself after the appointment, and that was Professor Iraj Abedian. And we were left with 4 members. Myself, Deputy Chair Nolutando Kosa, and Mr. Lubisi and Mr. Vusi Mavoso. So, sorry, let me answer the question, Your Honor. In constituting ourselves accordingly, we participated in most board committees, let me put it that way, because we realized that there's a very small complement of us, and all of us deserve to know what is going on in the business. So the best thing was, let's spread ourselves through all committees, except me attending audit committees. And most of them said, no, please come to the audit committees just to make an assessment, you'll not make an input. And I attended some. Thank you.
So the interim report was dealt with by the interim board. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, that's correct.
Then the final report came through, and how did the board deal with that final report? Was it ever tabled at a board meeting as an item on the agenda to be considered? And if so, what were the resolutions taken around how it was to be implemented?
I was quite pleased with the involvement of all board members in interrogating the report. There were those who were for the recommendations, others who just said, implement, don't even do anything about it. Reality is that in any circumstance where boards are constituted, there'll be those who will go negative, there'll be those who will go positive. However, I was quite comfortable as the chair that the contributions made by members of the board were quite substantive, and they had applied their minds up to a point of delivery of the report, which was still interrogated at a board level, and majority of the members suggested, let's forward the report to the minister. Thank you.
I'm asking, before it was sent to the minister, how did your board, on receipt of this report, deal with it, deal with its contents? There were adverse findings in that report that pertained to salary increment that affected the then acting COO. There were other, Ms. Duda was also fingered there. Now, what does the board do with this report?
Through you, Chair, I think what we had to acknowledge as the board is that there are facts you cannot deny. Other things were very obvious that Public Protector applied her mind in deducing the points of recommendations. However, it bothered me that the credibility of the information is largely rumor, in my view. Let me explain why. The complainants were 2 ex-employee members. And in my view, I have been an employee for many years. I have been a leader in the organization. I have chaired boards. There are certain parameters of an employee complaining that they have to exhaust. It's written in the policies and they're given that opportunity. That employees work in SABC for a lengthy period of time. They don't change much because I had reports about their behavior at work and their outputs from the previous leaders. And then they go 5 or 4 years outside to report the inefficiencies and the dysfunctionality of SAP was to me an anomaly. I also found the role played by the sitting group CEO, perturbing, that he is the cardinal vein of the organization. And I can read all what we put when we advertise the CEO, the type of CEO that we require. It was disturbing to me that she found it necessary to go and complain to Public Protector and not to the chair, not to the minister, not to the portfolio committee, which gives an oversight and makes sure that it's comforting. As well, what was also disturbing with the report, if I may just elaborate, was that SABC has enormous issues. I mean, some will share here in Parliament, but I'm also very prepared because when I resigned, I requested for an exit interview. Unfortunately, I was not given, I think because there was just too much media attention that no one wanted to listen, but I did request for an exit interview just to give my view of what do I think are the areas of focus for SABC to improve its status. But issues are too many, and I listened very carefully to the chair this morning on TV, and I really did discover that, you know, it's a very big challenge, and many organizations, in fact, need an ad hoc committee in South Africa.
Okay, ma'am.
Coming back to my unhappiness about the CEO, I mean, I didn't have the privilege, chairperson, and it's something that I wanted to highlight right from the beginning. I didn't have the privilege to listen to most of the presentation made. I just heard that I'm also implicated, I was interfering and all sorts of things, including the accusation by the CEO, Ms. Lulama Mokhobo, who has been a CEO in my time.
Okay, can we just, because you're going to lose me and I'm going to be disorganized, and I don't like being disorganized. It will help that you confine yourself to the question and answer session, ma'am. There was a meeting on the 2nd of July, 2014, between the board and its shareholder. You received a briefing from the minister What did the minister say to the board with regard to the implementation of the public protector report by the board?
If I may just pose a question, which minister? Because I served under three ministers, Minister Dinapule, Minister Karim, Minister Mtambi.
The 2nd of July 2014, the objective facts will reflect that Ms. Mutambi was the minister, and that is the minister I'm referring to.
It is true that minister was under pressure based on what Parliament requested from her in terms of timelines. And one of the timelines that, I'm privy to that because right from the interim board, we had enormous pressure to fill up vacant positions at the top. So minister came to SABC, I think, to address the issue of the appointment of the directors. In specific, if I recall, I think it was for the appointment of the CFO and COO. So we held a board meeting and we thought, let's address the board issues as well as the minister's issue.
But my question, ma'am, is a very simple one. You've just confirmed that one of the issues the minister, Minister Faith Mutambi, addressed the board on was on the implementation of the Public Protector's report by the board. And I want to know, what is it that she said? What were her instructions to the board around the implementation of that Public Protector report?
Please pardon me, I don't have any documentation with me, but in my reflection, if I recall, Minister was very bothered because there were publications on the print media about the delays which SABC are deliberately creating to stifle the Public Protector's report, which Minister herself felt indebted to come to the board and emphasize the urgency of us acting on the matters given, as well as sending a response to the Public Protector. Thank you.
And your shareholder gave you instructions to fast track the implementation of that report. Is that what you're saying?
Well, maybe fast track is a harsh word, but she gave us some encouragement. She also wanted to understand where are we with the response. Thank you.
Then, did the minister mention anything about the vacancy of the COO position?
Yes, she did. And it was not the first time she did, because it was a pressure we've had from the interim up until her assuming office.
And what did she say about that COO, the filling of that vacancy?
Well, from my experience, Your Honor, unfortunately, I, just like Dr. Ngubane, I think, and many other chair, when you join a company as a board, there must be some kind of, a handover as well as an audit to assess what has gone wrong so that you can focus there. Unfortunately, we did not have that period because of the pressure of too many outstanding matters and too many issues. So we were deliberating on what is your thought around the financial model, what is your thought around public protector, what is your thought around the publications that are negative around SABC that are having an impact on destroying the SABC brand, especially in terms of advertising.
The question, ma'am, is a simple one. What did the minister say to the board about the filling of the vacant position of the COO?
Minister said she is patiently waiting for the information from the board, and she hopes that the board is going to resolve these matters as soon as possible.
Fast forward 5 days later, the board meets again on the 7th of July 2014. And this is a special board meeting. There are two items on the agenda, the COO matter, as well as the Public Protector report. What was the agenda about this meeting?
Thank you. It must have been urgent, just like all other urgent issues that we've put as priority to present to Parliament, that these are the issues will be resolved by. So the issue of appointments at senior level posed as an impediment, and the issue of public protector meeting the deadline has been an issue. The issue of giving a position on set-top box control had a timeline, and we had to deal with that. So there were many issues, if I answer you correctly. Thank you.
There were two items on the agenda, ma'am. It is the public protector report. It is the issue of the COO. Firstly, who decided about this meeting?
About the same meeting the minister attended.
No, the 7th July 2014, the special board meeting.
No, the minister raises her concern with the chair of the board, which was me in that case. I informed company secretary, minister would like to come and assess how far are we in as far as the public protector response is concerned, even in a far, to assess how far have we gone with the appointment of the two directors. So it was the minister, thank you. There were two issues on, if I recall well, there were two issues. It was a public protector issue as well as the appointment of the two executives, CFO, as well as the COO. You will recall that during that period, Tian was acting as a CFO. We didn't have a CFO. So the vacuum was not only around the position of a COO, even under general managers and executive managers, there was a very serious vacuum.
No, I'm asking who called that special meeting, ma'am? Is it yourself or the minister? I didn't get that.
No, it was myself.
Having consulted with the minister or having had discussions with the minister?
Yes.
Yes. Why was the agenda a secretive or a matter of national interest? The agenda item referred to the COO matter. Some board members who came here testified that they could not even make head or tail of what that item was on the agenda, what they were going to be seized with. Why did we decide to put it in the fashion in which you did?
Sorry, I'm trying to get the minutes so that I understand. I can't even remember how it was paraphrased, but what I remember is that it was a special board meeting to deal with two items, the PP report as well as the appointment of the directors.
The notice is on record here. The company secretary whom you requested to send the notice a day before the meeting has given evidence, it is on record. Even herself, she couldn't make head or tail of the agenda, the item on the agenda, because it simply says the COO matter. Now you're inviting non-executive board members to a meeting that only yourself and the minister are aware of, and you are not transparent. There's no supporting documentation. Why were there no supporting documentation for that meeting?
It is not true that the members of the board were not aware. It was a contentious issue that graduated to a level where the minister is beginning to put pressure. Because there were those members of the board who wanted position to be advertised. There were litigious issues around an ex-employee, the late Vuzombebe. There were issues of the Duda, I think his name was Duda. So the legal department gave us advice, deliberate on the issues prior to minister insisting to come, was purely to make sure that we take the right route.
If this was a board meeting, why did you invite the minister to the special board meeting?
The gravity of the issues warrant that we had a minister, because reality is that the minister appoints the three directors. So it wouldn't have been an arbitrary decision or my meeting with the board only. Because at the end, we'll have to motivate collectively to the minister to appoint.
The minister was not at the meeting itself. She was idling somewhere at the SABC offices. Is that correct?
No, she wasn't idling. What happened is that we organized a meeting and we held a meeting. We requested that minister comes after the decision has been made. Reality is that this was a push for us to come up with a decision, so that when we meet with the minister, we have a collective view of what the board has decided. We wouldn't have engrossed a minister in what is our duty to do. So we would be derelict if we did that, because it's our fiduciary responsibility to exhaust all avenues before we inform the minister.
Exactly my point. You said, when I asked you why inviting the minister to the meeting, you gave a reason, but the minister is not at the meeting. And what the recommendation was going to get to the minister even the following day, as it did. So why was the minister at the SABC between 6 to 11 at night, babysitting a board?
I would desist from saying she was babysitting. We collectively had to arrive at a comfortable decision where board members have a common view on the matter. We still had to deliberate on the matter. Hence, the minister was not allowed to come to the meeting. She was not coming to the meeting. She said, I want to come after the board meeting. When we have all deliberated on an issue, this is what I have to come and assess.
Ma'am, I have the minutes of that meeting where you bullied the board into taking a decision. And I'm putting it to you because you're doing that because you and the minister had an understanding that come what or may, that evening there was going to be a board decision for the minister's consideration. What is your response to that?
I had prepared a preamble in trying to avoid, because I did seek legal counsel on the terms of reference that were authored by the chair. And in my preamble, in the terms of reference that were given, part of the most outstanding thing that was written was that the mandate for this is to inquire.
Ma'am, with the greatest of respect.
Oh, sorry.
With the greatest of respect.
Yes.
This committee, myself, will probably educate you about the terms of reference of this committee. Can you just answer the question? I've put to you that you, working with the minister and yourself being at the board meeting, you put undue pressure on board members to come to a decision because the minister is waiting in the boardroom. What is your response to that question? To that statement, sorry.
Sorry, I was not trying to dissuade you from saying what you say.
Can you please then answer the question?
I can reserve my rights, and this is what I was trying to read, that if the question is what is this legal term? It's accusatory, or what? Yes. I reserve my right. But to answer your question, and you have already accused me that I bullied, I did not bully members. Members of the board have a right to give their views, and they gave their views. They gave me their views, and without any pressure, without any push, they did mention their views, even when minister was there.
Ma'am, you bullied the board. Professor Khumalo, the minutes state that, and I want to read what Professor Khumalo said. Professor Khumalo pointed out that he had been keeping quiet in protest because he was of the view that the chairman had been unfair to cut him off in the midst or in the midstream without having heard what he had intended to say. He felt prejudiced, and he had been prejudged and deprived of an opportunity to perform his duty as a director. You've never contested that. It is in your minutes.
I've had various meetings with chairs of committee because Professor Khumalo was a chair and a member of the Human Resources Committee. I was very frustrated with his absence when that matter has been dealt with, when we needed his input in a very big way. Now, the pressure was on the board as a whole to make some kind of decision-making, because personally, and I really don't want to say I have the best leadership quality, but all I want to say is that I do believe in decision-making. I don't want to hold something forever and not meet the deadline and take all the blame for stifling the progress.
Just last question, I'm running out of time. The board decision is recorded in these minutes. There was a whole host of debate that took place in that meeting. But ultimately, those who defied logic agreed that Mr. Motsoneng should fill the position of COO, but there's a proviso there that Mr. Mchunu, an attorney who was invited to the meeting, should first advise the board before a recommendation was sent to the minister. Now, the recommendation was sent to the minister without Mr. Mchunu's legal opinion on the decision of the board. Why did that happen? And was that not contrary to a decision of a board you chaired?
Our fiduciary responsibilities were never at any stage given to any attorney. It was the role of the board to come up with a decision on the matter. So I really did not feel any necessity to solicit a legal advice for something which board, depending on their capability to make decisions, to decide. Sorry, I apologize.
Thank you very much, Honorable Vanara. Mr. Singh, your time starts now.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, Ms. Tshabalala. I just want to follow on what Advocate Vanara has been talking about and a response on the Public Protector's report. You said the interim board received the report, and in your words, you said you agreed with most. But you had, when I say you, I mean the board, had some concern that the CEO had not brought some of these matters to your attention. Now, there were a number of recommendations made in the Public Protector's report at that time. And one of the things that you said to the Portfolio Committee when asked about the Public Protector's report, you said, if the Public Protector produces any suspicious information about any individual or business, it doesn't necessarily mean it's Bible. I'm quoting you exactly what you said. What did you mean by that? Because in the Public Protector's recommendation, there were concerns expressed about the acting CEO. Which particular recommendations did you all not agree with? And what action did you take in implementing the recommendations of the Public Protector, given the fact that the board did not see it fit to take the Public Protector's report on review?
Thank you very much. That is a very good question. When we received the interim report, as I mentioned to Honorable Member Vanara, that we felt every evidence that is laid in the report has been truly solicited from the people, as she said, people were interviewed. However, when we got Mr. Mchunu's report, who gave evidence on where this, because, by the way, just for the information of this committee, Chair, there was never a situation where everybody serving in the board did not understand where Hlaudi's matter came from. It was coming from public, it was coming from, but there was evidence of Hlaudi being fired, there was evidence of Hlaudi being brought back to SABC. So based on all the information pertaining to Hlaudi, we had to get the lawyer that was responsible. And I heard insinuations that I know the lawyer. I've never known the lawyer until I joined SABC. So we had to get the evidence of why did he go out, why did he come back, who was instrumental in getting Hlaudi back, and what were the reasons motivated or advanced for him to come back. So my concern, the reason why I mentioned that was more to do with, let's demystify what is a rumor and what is a fact. So Mr. Mkuno was going to help us with the facts that he had presented to SABC so that we can weigh what the public protector is saying against the facts that are presented by a lawyer who would not sacrifice his position to mislead the board.
Thanks. So you are saying to us here today that the board at that time felt, including yourself, that the Mkuno report or recommendations carried more weight than what the public protector had said in her report in terms of recommendations. Is that what you are saying to us?
No, Honorable Member, I'm not saying that. I'm saying, having met with the public protector personally, not the board, she made certain accusations of Hlaudi's conniving with ministers and everything, and I could be bullied by Hlaudi. I said, no, that is not a fact. And she also alluded to me that she had interviews with people who allegedly are the ones that want Hlaudi out of SABC, even those that took Hlaudi back. And surprisingly, the panel that took Hlaudi back, one of them was Mrs. Nzimande, who went to the public protector way after to say Hlaudi is a problem in the organization. So all I'm saying, Mr. Singh, Honorable Member, is that I'm saying having the preconceived meeting with the public protector made me believe that there is a serious imbalance in terms of factual information as well as what she alludes to.
Last question, sir.
Yeah, okay. I'm going to move from the public protector's report because I know other colleagues will deal with it. Let me come to this TNA breakfast briefings. You got in after Dr. Ngubane's board. I'm sure you received a legacy report. And when your board met, did you ever consider whether this was something worthwhile pursuing, continuing, given that there's a perception that certain people and certain companies are benefiting financially at the expense of the taxpayer and the SABC? Your views on that?
Yes, Honorable Member, I did share my concerns with the executives. However, in many instances, which I can disclose to this Ad Hoc Committee, I discovered that the executives are so entrenched in a business, so much so that, we're all cousins. If they don't want to do something, they don't do it. Some of the information presented at the board were totally misleading. They were coming from senior executives. Unless as a board chair or you've pushed the company secretary to go and scratch the surface for more information, you would actually pronounce yourself and you would find yourself compromising the fiduciary responsibility of everyone. So the issue of sponsorship was a concern, especially in a committee that dealt with PCS and PBS. And we raised it as members of the board to say, we want to see what is the value system of SABC in terms of all sponsorships. We did not isolate the TNA as at that time it was perceived to be highly beneficial to our country in terms of the platform created to enable people to be conversing, the leaders conversing to the citizens and the citizens conversing to the... So it was not an isolated matter, but yes, the issue arose from the board committee.
Honorable Makosi.
Yes, thank you very much, Chair, and thank you very much, Ms. Tshabalala. You joined the SABC in 2010, right?
No, in 2013.
No, but you served in the interim. Oh, okay, no, that is fine. What I want to find out from you, you are saying there was information that emanated, that was coming from the executives, that was presented to the board that was misleading. Can you share with us what information was that and who were those executives that were misleading the board?
Thank you very much, Dr. Khoza, honorable member. I'll just choose the sporadic areas of serious concern for the board. One of them is risk management. Through my experience, I've been taught that immediately you walk in any company, you must be able to assess what is a risk factor and what is not a risk factor. And so that was my area of concern, that let me get the chief executive with the executive that deals with risk to come and give a presentation so that we can be empowered to understand the risk factors of SABC. It took a lengthy period before that happens. Now, it calls for a CEO to have robust and sometimes negative interactions with board members that are a standoff. And as a chair, I have to find a way of reconciling and making sure that the CEO is not feeling that she's abused, but the board members deserve to have this information. So when that presentation took place, board members unanimously were so disappointed at the presentation because to us it was just a literature. It was not giving us the specific challenges that SABC is facing in terms of risk areas. So that was one misleading factor. Now, where I am sitting, honorable member, I'm saying, what was the role of the CEO then? Because surely if I would have said, let me see this presentation you're going to be presenting there. Let me interrogate it with you and maybe other members of the executive before I take it to the board. The second one where I felt it was a gross negligence on the role of the CEO was when we're dealing with the issue of the set-top box control. What we were asked to do was to come with a position. And by the way, this thing dates back to the time when Her Excellency Minister Kasapuru was there. And because I worked for the post office many years ago as a head of the international relations, it was a subject matter I know about, and I know her noble ideas of bringing the encryption into the boxes that could also address young people. So it became a national issue, not of the ministry alone, but as well as of the public. But what was very surprising to us as the board was that when we confided in the CEO to say, CEO, the nation is anticipating to have this matter closed in 2015, because that was a timeline given to ITU, International Telecoms Union in Geneva. Now, we have to make sure that we meet with this deadline. What is the hold?
Yeah, I think it doesn't sound to me like misleading. I probably thought that you were going to say these were the issues that, where the executives presented information that was not truthful. But it appears as though it probably wasn't. It didn't go as far as probably you wanted to. Am I correct?
Can I just give you some additional information which really answers your question? Why was it misleading was that when I, as a chair, requested the information from the CEO to say, what is the position of the SABC? Because this is what we have to report to the minister. She said, this is the position we're taking. I took her word for it. I took the matter to the board. The operators, led by Hlaudi, and I think there was members of the PBS present, vehemently opposed her position. Now, we are a board that is sitting, listening to the CEO whom we trusted, and listening to operators, because that area is dependent on operators. So the information led by the CEO was misleading.
So would you trust the COO, well, Saudi's views as opposed to the CEO? And I just want you to remember that the CEO ultimately is the accounting officer. So why would you opt for the other and not the accounting officer who understands the consequences that come with taking wrong decisions?
Thank you, Honorable Member. It's a brilliant question. The board did not believe anything because, to be honest with you, the issue of set-top box control is a technical matter. Now, if technical people oppose the position of the CEO, it raised concerns from the members of the board, and the board resolved the following. They said, let's have a workshop so that we can be quite exposed to this technical matter, which became a concern of cabinet and everyone who wants to make noise in public, like one of the ministers, to understand exactly what is that we have to make the decision on. So there was a workshop after that for board members to be fully appraised on why we wouldn't go that way and why we wouldn't go that way. But there was enormous pressure as well from the political space, which was a surprise to us, to say, why would Minister Nzimande worry about the encryption? Why would Minister prioritize the issue of digital terrestrial TV over the funding model of SABC, which is in tatters? So we did exhaust avenues in terms of understanding what it is, and to our own pleasure, the Deputy President of the country requested a meeting with the shareholder. All protocol was observed. Her office spoke to the shareholder spoke to me, I spoke to the CEO, and the CEO spoke to the team, and requested that we come and elementarize this whole thing so that he himself at cabinet level or in parliament can respond with facts and understanding of what this thing is. So we held that meeting.
Chair, sorry, I know that my time is up, but Ms. Tshabalala is mentioning Minister Nzimande, and I'm not sure how does he fit in this. I'm not sure if I heard her correctly, because earlier on, because we may confuse Ms. Phumelele Ntombela Nzimande and the minister, and I'm not sure. I just need to get clarity from you because I don't understand how does he get involved with SABC matters and the encryption.
Thank you, Chair. I don't know if you would allow me to explain this because it's quite a laborious response I will give. But when I joined in 2013, before I was even a week in the position, we received a call from the Communist Party. Then, I think, spokesperson or deputy secretary, I don't know what is his position. But he was asking me to support Minister Karim on agreeing on the encryption. At that time, I didn't even know what it is, and I'm being very honest. And I said, but how do you get involved? Because my experience tells me that this is a technical matter. And following the publicly announced judgment of Justice Pretorius, who when ETV took Minister Dinapoli to court, you will recall that there was a judgment by the Honorable Justice Pretorius, who said, Minister, focus on policy making and leave broadcasters to deal with issues of technical nature, which is a fair judgment in my view. It was a very, very 100% correct judgment. Now, we will be in contempt if we go against the law, one. But secondly, we were inundated with politicians asking us to support this encryption. So, as Honorable Mr. Swart was asking about the interference, there is gross interference, Honorable Member, and it has a potential to derail even employees from giving the board the correct information because they are influenced outside. Thank you. Sorry, I did not.
No, that's fine. No, that's fine. No, that's fine. Ms. Tshabalala, I don't know if you were sitting here earlier on. The incumbent sitting in that seat before you said on 2 or 3 occasions there was no political interference. You saying there was gross political interference. Now, I know that you didn't serve at the same time. Are you suggesting to this committee, if I have to believe both of you, that Dr. Ngubane served until 2013, testified to this committee that there was no political interference, you started immediately after him, and then there was political interference? Do you understand the dilemma that we're sitting with? And I'm not saying you're right or he's wrong, but we've got to guard the integrity of the information that comes here. What would you say if I said to you, and I don't know if you were here, that the individual that sat there just before you said there was no political interference, you saying in your very last statement there was gross political interference? Assist us to reconcile these two after you've left.
Well, now I'm talking for the future, Chair.
No. We're talking about in your tenure. You are saying there was definitely political interference
Yes,
to the
yes.
extent that you mentioned names.
Yes.
Let me put the question to you differently. The fact that Dr. Ngubane said there was no political interference, is that a surprise to you or is it not a surprise to you? Because in your tenure, all of a sudden, things changed almost 360 degrees. Are you surprised with the statement that he made?
I'm not surprised, Chair. It could have been at a level where he is. He did not get anything that was raising suspicion. But in my tenure, there was a lot of political interference.
No, that's fine. You were both chairpersons of the board, so when you say at levels, but that's fine. Because this is something that we're going to have to grapple with. And I want people to be serious when they talk to us because we are taking notes, we are transcribing, and we're going to have to argue this thing amongst ourselves at some point. Professor Kubisa, your time starts now.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, Ms. Tshabalala. Ms. Tshabalala, you came and before you there was this public protector's report which had cited a number of issues, very pertinent, very critical. Did you convene some meetings with your board with an aim of attending to those critical issues that had been spoken to by the public protector?
Yes, Honorable Member, I did. And I did openly in a formal meeting of nominations and governance, and I requested to be recused in terms of inputting because I was also implicated. So it was led by Professor Ngubane right through. Thank you.
You say you recuse yourself because you're implicated. Were there specific outcomes with regard to the recommendations that had been given by the public protector that you wanted to see being achieved within a short space of time? Because I understand they were speaking to the issue of turning the SABC around and dealing with issues of mismanagement, maladministration and corruption within SABC.
I must say, as I mentioned earlier, Honorable Member, there were issues just at a glance of seeing the report you could easily identify with. And I was pleased that, it confirms, we see the same thing that public protector or the complainants have seen. The dysfunctionality on corporate governance was a true fact. There were areas where corporate governance was completely flouted and policies were completely flouted. And we took measures to say, let's interrogate all policies in SABC. Let them come to the committee of the board and let's escalate it to the board so that we can debate the policies, whether these policies talk to the organization we're leading or not, so that we can make rectifications of those issues first before we move forward.
What was this major issue that you wanted to attend to immediately? Because the people we called, those that we interviewed here, most of them spoke to the issue of flouting procurement, supply chain management policies, etc. What is it that you wanted to attend to with immediate effect? HR matters, procurement matters. What is it that you wanted to attend to immediately?
Thanks, Honorable Member. There was a host of them which we have committed to Parliament that we're going to be dealing with this issue. So, yes, the issue of employees was an issue because, in some instances you would find that a manager is complaining that each time I try to reprimand so-and-so, this person says, I'm going to tell my political party. And I said, CEO, deal with these issues because this person is indebted to bring the grievance or a complaint to the authority that is there at the time. So telling a politician about the issue, you are actually going against the policy of the organization. And please find a way of explaining to all members that it's not about politics. You must deliver. If you are given work, you must do your work, and to the best of your ability to give good results to the organization. So, yes, the employees was an issue. The issue of negative publication and the effects on the brand of SABC was a big issue as well. The issue of financial viability of the organization and long-term sustainability of the SABC was primary. That was key. And maybe let me take this opportunity through you, Chair, to just give a synopsis of what also causes dysfunctionality in SABC. The model at SABC, in just elementarizing it, 3% comes from government, 86% comes from advertising, 11% comes from licensing. Now, during my tenure, I took the trouble because there were many complaints leveled against SABC not meeting the needs of the country. I took the trouble to come to a committee of chairs. I don't know whether it's called that way, Honorable Member, but just to come and explain to them what are the challenges in the financial model and why are we having certain limitations in terms of delivery. I brought the chief of news, Jimmy then, the CEO, Lulama Mokobo, and we met in that committee. What was very surprising to us as SABC, a board, was that most members displayed surprise that how we didn't know that this is the state of affairs in your financial model. Because 2002, if I'm not mistaken, there was a Stellenbosch conference which resolved that they will beef up funding of SABC by 60%. To date, it has not been the case. So why I'm mentioning this is that it calls for executives, the CEO, the board, to go and look for funding to make SABC sustainable. You will recall that sometimes, well, I don't want to cast any judgment, but you will recall when Hlaudi goes publicly to say, I raised the money. It poses as a challenge if you give people that responsibility without challenging it in Parliament or challenging it with the minister. So from time to time, I found myself having the responsibility to explain to the minister that this is not priority. Priority is funding model, because if we can self-sustain SABC.
Tshabalala, please try and summarize. Your time is running.
Okay, sorry about that.
I'll allow you to do it, but just try and summarize.
Okay, so in summary, Honorable Member, is to say, the impact of the poor SABC funding model has got direct impact on SABC depending on other avenues of financial sustainability.
The multi-choice deal, I'm sure it happened during your tenure. What was the rationale behind it? And how did it go? What were the spin-offs for the SABC as an organization? And also, is there a particular individual that benefited or individuals that benefited from that deal?
Thank you so much. The initiation of collaborating to a level of achieving the agreement by multi-choice was initiated way before we came. I have correspondence that was advanced by an executive of SABC, Mr. Tshabalala, I've got it here with me, where he highlights the need for an agreement of this nature. But unfortunately, their challenges was funding. They could not source funding for them to graduate to a level of establishing a highly competitive channel, which is 404. So Mr. Jimmy Matthews came to the board on several occasions, pleading with the board to say, we have this good idea of meeting this competition, but the thing is there is no money. So I'm appealing to the board to assist. Then MultiChoice and SABC met then before we came. The challenge was still the funding.
Sorry, Ms. Tshabalala, I don't intend to be rude, but we've really doubled the time. But you can always come back to it. We'll create space for you to continue. I hope you agree with it. But your time is up, sir. Your time is up. Honorable Swartz. But we'll afford an opportunity. Just make note, Ms. Tshabalala, you will be able to come back to it.
Thank you, Ms. Tshabalala. The issue about political interference, could you be more specific about the nature of that political interference? You referred to my earlier question to the previous speaker here, and I prefaced it by a member of his board, Mr. Peter Harris, who had said he had left because of intolerable interference from the communications ministry in the board's activities. That was that board. And we know Dr. Ngubane said as far as he was concerned, there wasn't political interference, but you have said there was gross interference. I presume it was from the relationship between the Ministry of Communications, but elsewhere as well. I'm surprised you received political calls from political parties as well. Just briefly, please, because my time is very limited and I don't want to be rude to interrupt you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Swart. I will request, Chair, through you, that I do not call names, but basically, most interference stemmed from DA, from ANC, from the Communist Party. Like most of the challenges of political interference stemmed from those three. My proposal to the leadership of SABC was that, why don't you engage with these political parties and request that if they have any issues, we are indebted to give them the response, but not at the pace of interfering with the broadcasting activities. So unfortunately, that did not happen, and then Lulama was the CEO. I don't know what could have happened, but even disciplining the CEO over being called by politicians, ignoring the fact that the protocol suggests that politicians can speak to the minister. The minister will call the chairman of the board, or if the CEO, if it's necessary, if they don't understand. But going to the political parties' offices compromises the respect of the shareholder, and you are requested never ever to do that again.
Thank you. Just that the very contentious meeting in July and the appointment of the COO. Now, the court recently, in the DA matter, indicated that when, in reference to that decision in July, that said the decision to appoint Motsoneng as COO in July 2014 would have been perceived by ordinary members of the public as displaying a contemptuous attitude to the public protector. Against that background, surely one would have been very careful, considering what the public protector had already said when you finalized the appointment of the CEO at that meeting. Would you agree with that?
I just want to understand the CEO or the COO?
COO, sorry, I'm
COO,
speaking about the COO,
okay.
Mr. Motsoneng, yes.
To be honest, Honorable Member, there were many contentious issues around the nature of which SABC followed to employ. Some of them were litigious. People took SABC to court. Some of them, SABC won the case, some lost the case. So I don't view it as around Claudi only. It was a matter which we had to be seized with in terms of having correcting the situation within the organization.
And then you instructed Machuni lawyers for, well, the letter that you read, did you read a letter from the COO's attorneys recommending that he should be appointed in that meeting?
Yes, I did.
And did you get any counter, and obviously there were counter views expressed, but was it not strange to read a letter from the lawyers representing a particular person that was about to be appointed in that meeting and not get other views as well from your own legal advisors?
The content of the letter basically was not trying to push us to appoint. It was saying, note these challenges that you might face legally. If you don't, if that puts pressure, for me, I respect the law because I don't understand it quite well. I have to refer to the lawyer to explain certain things, which I did in this committee. But the letter, if I recall, was saying, be aware that you have made somebody act for a lengthy period of time and that has got a legal recourse.
And did you ask your own, sorry? Yes, I do. Is my time up? Oh, I see. Just then, it would appear that there was a push to finalize that appointment very urgently. Is that correct?
Yes, it was very correct. And not only for the purpose of letters or any influence that is coming. The business was beginning to ail because, if there is no head, then people were making decisions that work against the organization. And for that matter, we aligned with Parliament's request that confirm appointments. We no longer want to see the actors and actresses at SABC. So it was very important for the board to arrive at a decision of the CFO, CEO, as well as the executives that were not employed fully.
Thank you very much. I informed that the two of you have some arrangement. Okay, Loliwe, you'll follow.
Thanks, Chair. Ms. Tshabalala, you were so quick to say you were called by the Minister of Higher Education. And you said the Minister of Higher Education called you as a leader of the Communist Party. And you were quick to backtrack in saying you don't want to mention the leaders of the political parties that called you. What would you say if I put it to you that you are making the minister a scapegoat?
I'm sure it's public information, and I apologize if I was misunderstood. I'm misunderstood. He did not call me, but a member, I don't know whether he was spokesperson or deputy something of the Communist Party, requested that I support Minister Karim on the issue of set-top boxes, idea of having encryption. So my responsibility is to listen to the business and escalate the matter to all the protocols that are set before me.
Maybe, with your permission, Chair, additional to what we are going to say about multi-choice, you'll explain why you mentioned the Minister of Higher Education. Because when you were responding to Dr. Khoza, you linked him to what I'm saying now. Let's pass that because I don't have much time. The minister that came after you, I'm sorry, the chairperson that came after you, when he was in front of this committee, said if he had his way, he would kick everybody out of SABC, though I'm not quoting him verbatim. It was your legacy that he was alluding to. What can you say to that?
Thank you, Honorable Member. The push for appointments of senior executive had also been a contentious issue, even in the political arena, where when I joined SABC, there were politicians who said, for you to succeed in that organization, get rid of the CEO. For you to succeed, get rid of so-and-so. I didn't do it because I wanted to see for myself. I wanted to have practical knowledge of what they're talking about so that I don't treat people unfairly with the attitude that the world doesn't want them. I don't believe in that. So there was a moment where we spoke about, you know what, take the rumors out of situations, but we will measure you on the value that you are adding in the organization. And from time to time, we will assess whether you are still relevant to the organization or not, which is the best practice.
Ms. Mukhobo testified that she usually clashed with you a lot over decisions that were taken that she did not agree with. Can you share more light on that area?
Thank you for that. Fortunately, I've been an employee myself for many years, including in some companies where I served in the board after. I know the rights of employees very well, and I'm very protective of them. When I joined, I had a lengthy discussion with the CEO that let's work together. I'm also very worried that each time a female CEO comes, must fire the previous CEO, which is going around in public that women fight and also. So I said, you know what, let's work together and make sure that we deliver on our mandate, because there's a clear line of duty within which we have to operate. So I really didn't feel burdened by that. But where I thought there is either lack of maturity or understanding of the rules was when she was having a standoff with board members. I had to protect board members. I also had to protect her by saying, let me be the communication. Don't talk direct to her, and CEO talk to me before I talk to her. Now I'm mothering relations. So if you were to ask me that certain board members, you personally, if you had an opportunity, you would choose to sit in the board, I'll tell you no. If you were to ask me whether we have a CEO that was competent and bold to take decisions, I will say no. So we were caught in that fix where we just have to make sure that in the 6 months, there are things which we can point as delivery. So this is not much of a priority, because she was also threatening me that I'm resigning. And I was very surprised because I was not aware that she threatened. I'm resigning, and I had to beg her again. She said, you can't resign based on the insult by Deputy Chair Nolthando Kosa to you. Let's talk about it, let's resolve it. So the conflict resolution process has been ongoing in the board, but we had to live with it.
Can you just be mathematical in being straight to the point? She said the two of you clashed a lot. That's the area I want you to allude to, and agree or disagree with that, because that is what she said in front of this committee.
I wish Company Secretary was here to attest, and if possible, I think the committee has all the right to get the minutes, because in many instances, it happened in the presence of all board members, and I would call her on the side and reprimand her of having a standoff with the board member. Board members are very senior, and it's not a fair thing that a CEO rises up and have bad exchange with the board member. So it was purely on issues of her role as a CEO to the board. So, and it was not between me, it was largely between her and the deputy chair.
All right, Nyang Mosha, Nina, then you're really Nyang Mosha. But let's take Honorable Waters, and then it'll be Van Dam, then we'll go that way, and we'll end with you, Chauke. So it'll be this.
Mrs. Tshabalala. And you mentioned you got a phone call from an individual on behalf of the Minister of Higher Education asking you to support a certain aspect, a certain decision. You also mentioned that you had interference from, you wouldn't name names, you name parties. Now, for me, from what I got from your reply was that you're conflating accountability, politicians holding you accountable, to political interference. There's a big distinction there. So MPs that serve on the communications portfolio, in fact, any MP in Parliament has an obligation and a right to hold you and other people, obviously, accountable. And I don't think that's political interference. What I do think is political interference is if you get a phone call from anyone, doesn't matter, even myself, asking you to support a certain decision. That's interference. If I can ask you though, Mr. Tshabalala, did the current Minister of Communications at all ask you to support or influence you in any way in any of the decisions, and particularly with the appointment of the COO? You and her had a meeting to discuss the matter. You called a special meeting 5 days later, or a few days later, on the 7th of July, where you vehemently pushed for the appointment of the COO and a particular individual. And I want to know from you, did the Minister ask you to support that individual's candidacy? Thank you.
Thank you very much for your observation. I do not recall a situation where a minister tried to persuade me and tried to push me for a particular decision. I thought it is within her purview to ensure that a parastatals under her jurisdiction delivers on time. She was very, very worried that it looks like we are not reaching the deadlines that are set before us. So I looked at it purely from a point of her position and what she has to take to government and excuses that she has to take. So maybe it was a lash to the board, but it was good.
Did you ask the Minister why the appointment of the COO was that more important than the filling of the vacancy for the CFO?
Thanks, Honourable Member. I didn't, because I understood the heat that the operations is faced with. They were having a lot of challenges in terms of decision-making processes. And I was trying to avoid a situation where matters are elevated to the board because the operations person cannot take certain decisions. Some of the acting positions, they did not understand that when you act, you are representing the organization. You must make decisions. We can't leave sucking our thumb, thinking that somebody must decide for us. So my concern was that the impact of not appointing the senior executives has got a direct link on the operations.
In the meeting with the Minister, while you've said that she didn't say to you, you must support a certain individual for COO, did you discuss any individuals between the two of you as who would be the most appropriate individual for the job of COO?
No, we didn't.
So, okay. So based on that, you went into a meeting with the board members. You pushed for a particular individual to be appointed into that position, even though you're fully aware of the Public Protector's report, which said that this person was unfit to hold that position. Is that correct?
It's not correct that I push. I allowed every member of the board to participate in the debate. Most of them were for the appointment to avoid a litigious issue which might arise from Mutlaudi. Some were not interested in Mutlaudi. They just did not like the individual to be the COO.
Were you influenced at all by any other minister or any of their proxies?
Honourable Member, I don't know whether this is inherent in my culture. I don't like to be influenced largely, especially when I'm given a responsibility, because I want to hold a view that I want to stand in court and protect my decisions.
All right. Last question. You said about the Public Protector's report that it was imbalanced. That was the word you used. I've written it down here. I mean, that is your opinion. But the fact is, if you thought it was that imbalanced, why didn't the board take it on review then?
The board, in their deliberations, during the deliberations of that interim committee, others held the view that this is just a gossip. Others held the view that these are serious matters. Let's deal with it. And this is the way we went. Majority of the people agreed to the process that had to be taken. And I think this answers Honourable Member Kulisa, that most members interrogated every aspect of the report. And I've got great respect for members of the board then, because even when they thought of something, they would actually bounce it to the chair to say, look, For this reason, I don't think this is the route we are following and would bring the matter back to the board.
That's Honorable Van Dam.
Thank you, Chair. Ms. Tshabalala, when you were nominated to serve on the SABC board, your nomination letter came from one David Nati Shabangu, an ANC employee at Letuli House, and in fact your nomination came on an ANC letterhead. One, why would you send a nomination to a board that should be, to Parliament, or a board that is supposed to be independent of any political parties? Why would that be sent on an ANC letterhead? And then, in terms of your nomination, how did it happen? Were you approached by Nati, or did you approach Nati for that nomination?
I want to be honest with you, I don't even know Nati. I didn't even understand how Parliament advances to the public that they must nominate. I only see these nominations things on the newspapers, but the SABC one I didn't see. And I must say that it happened at the time that there was bereavement in the family. My focus was more on the burial of my dad than any other thing, but I don't know Nati.
Okay, so you didn't ask to be nominated. Nati from Lutuli House nominated
Absolutely
you
not.
without
No.
you asking.
No.
Good to know, thank you. And then one of the people that motivated for you to serve on the SABC board was Faith Mutambi, who at that time was an MP serving on the Communications Committee. Did you at all have a relationship with Minister Mutambi before she was a minister?
No, I didn't know her at all. I didn't know her.
All right, thank you. Now, in February 2014, the Public Protector's report is released. Even though it wasn't provided to you personally as the chairperson of the SABC board, it was released publicly. You could go into the internet. I'm assuming you get a hold of a copy of this report. You read it as a chairperson, and then you get to the section about the remedial action that the Public Protector requests. What are your views?
Thank you, Honourable Member. I did hold the view that some of the things that are picked on the report are a cause for concern, and they should be the cause for concern for the board and the executives of SABC. There are those, after we held a meeting with her, and deducing from the report of the lawyer, I felt that there was a rush to conclude her report, unfairly so, because other members said they were not interviewed. So I had to balance what she was saying vis-a-vis what the lawyer's evidence-led report was saying.
What was the board's position at that time? Were those remedial actions, were you required to implement the recommendations, or were they mere suggestions?
There was a feeling that we have to implement. And by the way, the inheritance of all the baggage of poor performance of SABC, we had to take that very seriously, that to improve the level of employees and to make sure that appointments will have effective delivery to Parliament, to all the stakeholders that we're accountable to.
Ma'am, that isn't technically correct. I read the board minutes of the discussions around the Public Protector report. There was a meeting on the 18th of the 3rd, so that's March, that's about a month after the report is released, and the board resolved that in dealing with the Public Protector's report, together with the timelines, to complete the implementation of recommendations. So the board resolved to implement the recommendations of the Public Protector. And at that time, the minister was Minister Yunus Karim. The change in the board's attitude, I put to you, towards the Public Protector happened when Minister Mutambi became the Communications Minister. Suddenly, Mkhunu was appointed. Suddenly, no, we're not sure about this Public Protector report. Maybe her actions are not actually, we don't have to implement a remedial action. So the switch happened based on the facts, based on the minutes of the board. When Minister Mutambi came in, suddenly the Public Protector's recommendations didn't require to be implemented. Mkhunu was appointed. How do you respond to that?
There's a level of disadvantage in this regard because I do not have the report and I do not have the sequence of events and the minutes that you're talking about. But if I recall, it was an individual view of members of the board that we should just implement the report, and other members in the board felt We can't just implement, we need to get facts. And this is true. This is why, the reason why Mr. Kuno was invited to the board was to give us his genesis on the matter of Hlaudi. How was Hlaudi appointed and everything? What was investigated? If there are any facts that we can help us to lead this evidence, we will welcome those facts so that we can look at what we are producing is acceptable and we can stand in the court of law.
Again, ma'am, that is not correct. In the board minutes of the 18th of the 3rd, 18th of March, it was a board resolution, i.e. the entire board agreed that those recommendations must be implemented. The change in inviting Mkhunu and having several board meetings again to discuss those recommendations happened when Mutambi became the minister. How do you respond to that?
I think the minister had very little to do with the contents of our report. Minister had something to do with the timeline of the report, whether or we will deliver on time, what are we busy doing. And we said, Minister, we've established a committee to deal with specific areas. And where we are unsure, we want legal people to assist, and there are minutes to that effect. I'm not to, because I was intimately involved with the entire process of committees dealing with the report, as well as reports coming from the committees. So, Minister had very little to do with you must defy or you must honor the public protector's remedial actions.
No, just so that I'll allow you. Maybe I must ask Ms. Van Dam, the minutes you're talking about, do we have them readily available? Because if we do, maybe we should give you those minutes, because I would imagine that they would be signed minutes of some sort. Because I think what Ms. Van Dam is saying is that there's a board decision that says, go this route, a board decision, not an individual decision. And then that decision gets diverted or deviated from. I think that's what Ms. Van Dam is saying. So I'm just wanting to check, do we have those minutes available so that we can at least refresh your memory, so that at least when you respond, ma'am, you're actually responding to something. I don't know if you have those minutes. I think that's what you were trying to get to at this point.
Yes, Chair. It was part of the 577 documents that were dumped on us by the SABC last year. So I had a look at specifically the minutes dealing with the Public Protector's report. So there were minutes, firstly, when the report was first released, when Yunus Karim was minister, and then also minutes after that. But the minutes of when immediately after the report was released, and it's actually, I don't know, I don't actually believe that you don't remember this. It is, in the minutes, the board resolved, you were chairing the board, you said as a board that the remedial action must be implemented. Then suddenly there was a change. I find it difficult to believe that you don't remember that. It's in the minutes. You were chairing the board. This is what was your resolution.
Chair, can I respond? Yes. Honourable Member, up until we've got all the evidence of what transpired, I really do not, you can hold your view, but I don't think it will be correct for me to respond on behalf of the board on things that did not happen. Reality is that all governance structures and the committees that were set up purely to look at the public report did what they had to do, and the report was produced to public protector. And none of those facts went publicly, by the way. None of what SABC produced to public protector ever carried any weight in the public domain. But it was just negative. Why are you not delivering on the report, even before the deadline?
Okay, so again, on the 22nd of August in 2014, you've said to me you don't remember agreeing to implement remedial action. A report was submitted to the Public Protector with an implementation plan of remedial action. Do you also not remember that?
Yes, I remember that.
So what's the problem? I mean, you agreed that the remedial action must be implemented, and then there was a sudden change later on.
There were facts which were not true in the Public Protector's report, and that, if you ask me, how did we determine whether those are true? We had Mr. Mkhunu who produced a completely different report from the Public Protector. So there were elements that were true, and I acknowledge that one of them was the issue of dysfunctionality, I mean the systematic flout of corporate governance. That I agree to, because I was evidently witnessing poor governance in the SABC. So other matters that public protector produced, to be honest, today, if that can be taken to the court of law, clause by clause and piece by piece, there were matters which were not true.
No. Just so that we will be accurate and be fair, Ms. Tshabalala, if we are able to produce minutes that Honorable Van Dam is talking about, that says on the 3rd of July or March, or whatever date it was, the board resolved to implement the public protector's remedial actions. If we are able to produce that, would you concede, having seen that document, that what you did was contrary to the board resolution? I'm just asking that question because we will try and get it to you, because I think that's what she's getting at. Unfortunately, if we knew, we would have done it. But I'm saying, if I could show you that document that says, here's your signature saying you will implement, a month or a week later you do something different, will you at least at a principle level concede that the decision of the board was deviated from, unless there was a subsequent minute that says, no, we took that decision on that day, we are now changing our mind? We just want to get that because it will help us in the producing of our report.
Thank you, Chair. I think it's important that we've got all the facts and the meetings preceding to certain decisions that were made. Yes, other decisions were rescinded, other decisions were individual, but yes, I would appreciate if we unpack the entire documentation of the public protector to arrive at a decision.
All right. Honorable Mkwena, followed by Nkwankwa, then it will be JL, then Kilian Sizovala Naweba. You're right. Okay. Honorable Mkwena, your time starts now.
Thank you, Chair. Madam Chairman, I also need to interrogate the issue of the political pressure that you got. Did you get any political pressure from the minister to appoint the COO?
No.
So it was totally your decision to call that meeting and to pressurize the board to appoint him?
No, Minister requested to come and visit the board of the SABC to assess how far we are with the public protector's report, as well as the appointment.
I'm trying to understand the pressure, this pressure that you are under. Was there a date or, because, you know, processes were flouted in that process. You did not call for interviews. It was suggested that you should call for interviews. You literally nominated somebody into a position, and literally the next day, the minister had announced the appointment of the COO. What was this huge pressure that you couldn't explain to the portfolio committee that no, we had to follow process?
Thank you for that question, Honorable Member. The pressure stemmed from this Parliament that you have to fill the executive positions urgently. We no longer want to hear your excuses of not filling up the positions.
I'm sorry, ma'am. It just doesn't wash with me.
It's on record.
Are you saying that this Parliament said to you that even if it means that you must flout process, that you must fill those positions by any means necessary?
No, Honorable Member, definitely not. And
then what was the pressure that forced you to flout process, is what I'm trying to understand.
I don't think we flouted the process, and let me just advance my reasons. To let a person act for a lengthy period of time that is not prescribed in the labor law has got a potential of a litigious matter. So can I just finish my point, Honorable Member? So the board had to weigh whether should we pursue that route of making recommendations of this person? And if so, can we trace the recommendations that have been made, even in previous boards, which we did, to see exactly what will we be getting into? The potential to advertise was also given to us by the employees of SABC, the executive acting then, to say, as an SOC, you must be seen to be transparent, you must advise. All the two positions were advanced fully. And then the board arrived at a position of appointing the COO.
I'm sorry, ma'am. Again, that doesn't wash with me because the Broadcasting Act is very specific about appointments, especially of the executive. There are processes that must be followed according to the Broadcast Act, which governs how the SABC must be run. There must be interviews. It must be an open process. What informed your decision to flout and to go against the Broadcasting Act?
Without repeating myself, this is a matter that the whole board has to entertain.
I understand.
It's not my issue.
I'm not asking you.
So-
I'm not asking you to repeat yourself.
So
I'm just saying. I'm just speaking to the legality of the decision. What was the pressure that was so much that you had to flout the Broadcasting Act, which governs the running of the SABC? What informed the board to come to such a decision?
That sounds like it's accusing the board for making the decision. However, I have to mention that the reasons advanced by the legal team of SABC to the board to say, if you are satisfied with the reasons, because if somebody, to be honest, by labor law suggests that if somebody has been employed to act in a position, you have to act within a certain period of time. If you act beyond that period of time, that position must be legitimized. It's a legitimate expectation. You are raising a legitimate expectation from the individual. Okay. So for that reason, we weighed these two reasons and we agreed that given the record of this individual by the previous boards and the previous authorities, why don't we just fill up this position and then get the operations running?
Okay, and then, so fine. So, okay. So one more thing. So you called a meeting of appointing a COO. You didn't say that this was a meeting to appoint Mr. Hlaudi. Did you discuss any other names in that meeting, or was that meeting specifically for the purpose of appointing Mr. Hlaudi? Were there any other names, and if there were such names, what names did you discuss?
If you follow the record of the minutes, there were three positions. I mean, there were two positions. The position of the CFO, Mr. Aguma, which then was currently Mr. Aguma's position.
I'm sorry, ma'am, I don't have
Yes.
time. I'm asking about the COO position.
There were two positions that were advanced.
I'm asking about the COO position. Were there any other names that were preferred to the position of COO, or were you only considering the name of Mr. Hlaudi, and why?
Several suggestions were made, and we based that on the experience these executives that exist within the SABC, whether or they will be eligible to hold the position of the COO. The result of that deliberation came with the idea that he was the most competent because he had been in the position of the COO.
I'm sorry, ma'am, the minutes don't suggest that there were any other names. Are you misleading Parliament?
I'm not misleading Parliament. There is evidence to what I'm saying, and I recall very well that I, as the chair of the board, wrote to the minister to give minister a background of what we've done to arrive at this.
The secretary, the company secretary. Okay, the company secretary suggested in front of this committee that she spoke well against the decision to appoint Mr. Hlaudi because of the public protector's report, one, and because it was still open. Decision like that. Sorry, I sabotaged myself there. How do you make a decision appointing somebody whose case is still sub judice, for lack of a better word?
I have already alluded to the issue of the public report being facts or being recommendation. And you must also understand it from a context of the matter being addressed in court. Judge Skeber says these are recommendations.
But it wasn't
And the
closed,
court-
ma'am. It was open.
Yeah, can I just mention that we were the board that was seized to ensure that this report is all what is contained in the report is factual. And what the Judge Skeber's verdict was, said, those are recommendations. They are not, a public protector is not a judge. Public protector makes recommendations, and it is up to the business to decide what they do with the recommendations. And as I said, most of the things that arose from that report, we did concede that this is true, we must do. But there are those that we felt they are skipping the authority of the CEO. In other words, even that report, if you look at it very carefully, it protects the authority of the CEO. And for me, the CEO is the vein, like I said, of every organization. If you're a CEO, you don't control the business, then you're not a CEO. Thank you.
Are we going to go to you, Kwankwa, and then come back to jail? Okay, so your time starts.
Thank you, Chairperson. Now we're talking about the same judgment. I just want to check. Molosis. Are we talking about the same Judge Skeppers who also said that the very same recommendations could not be ignored? You needed to take them on judicial review. Now, if you were not happy with the findings of the public protector and the recommendations, why didn't you take the report on judicial review? Was the question.
The contestation of the judicial review was also something that the board had to toy with. But after sending the report to the public protector, if I recall very well, we didn't get any comfort that that report has been taken seriously, because there's never been any rebut of the information that was contained in the report. So that report, I don't know whether it just went straight to the bin or what happened to that report. To be honest, I don't know. When this issue, the public issue, which was highly negated by the public on how the public protector conducted this particular report, which has nothing to do with SABC, it confirmed our suspicion that other things are hearsay, other things are, to satisfy the complainant, you make a suggestion of, but factually, other things are not fact.
So Sisi, like Dr. Ben Ngubane, you are saying you didn't even know whether some of the things went to the bin. That's a shocking statement. Because remember, you're the chairperson of the board. It means, like Dr. Ben Ngubane, you didn't care. You thought that the public protector's report is something that you could ignore and then carry on and get the lawyer. Remember when we were talking about Mkunu, right? In the very same paragraph that you spoke about the public protector and highlighted its weaknesses and shortcomings, you said you had to look for a lawyer who would not mislead the SABC. The implied message is that the public protector's report was misleading, but you did nothing about it.
To deal with issues where we had discomfort of misleading, we exhausted avenues to get the facts on the issues. And one other fact, which the public protector, I think, was highly correct, is the continuous procurement of goods and services, which was 100% correct. We are on record in the board and in the nominations committee about the dissatisfaction that we had with the procurement executive. Right from the issue of policy making to the issue of monitoring the procurement spend of SABC, the issues of Black economic empowerment, we were aggrieved. So we did take action to ensure that the executive accountable must come to the board, and we have more than the meetings of all other boards in terms of audit committee. We said we have to have monthly audit committee to ensure that there is traction.
No, the point I'm trying to make is that on the points that you didn't agree with the report of the public protector, you just felt like you could ignore them and get away with it because you thought it was in the dustbin. And you got that attitude from the minister, for instance. If the minister and the public protector exchanged a lot of correspondence during that time, the public protector trying to highlight some of the pitfalls and the mistakes that were being made by the minister, but the responses were very arrogant. and dismissive from the minister. But we're not going to talk about that now. But the issue I want to talk about is, you mentioned in the political interference story, you mentioned, a specific individual when it comes to the SABC, but you didn't do so when it comes to the ANC, not the Democratic Alliance. Remember, during your tenure as the chairperson of the board, you had a lot of fight with the chairperson, for example, of the Communications Committee, remember? In the media, exchanging words. But now it's important for you so that you don't appear as if you're actually trying to discredit that person or her political party, that you also tell us the specific individuals, for example, that interfered with the affairs of the SABC in the other political parties, and what were the issues.
Let me just, I understand, Honorable Member. Are you referring to the chair of the Portfolio Committee when I got appointed?
Correct.
Mr. Kolwane. Yeah, when I got appointed in 2013, the chairperson of the committee was Mr. Kolwane, whom I had a very good relationship with. I did not have a problem. Subsequently, there was a chairperson, Ms. Moloi Morupa, which I think it was acrimonious from the very first day, because there was a level of not wanting to listen to what I am saying, and I felt prejudiced. Hence, I took the matter to court, because when I go to the meeting, I'm invited to come and tell the committee about the sudden agenda changed of the meeting, and I was with my lawyer as required, and the senior counsel. She just got apprehensive to say, no, rules of natural
Sorry,
justice,
Mama.
but it was unfair on my side.
Sorry, Mama. That was not the main point. It was a secondary point. I was trying to make an example that by only picking on the SACP, it's going to appear as if you are attacking them because of the frosted relationship you had with the former chairperson of that portfolio committee. Now I'm asking you to give us specific examples of interference and what those issues were when it comes to the ANC and maybe the Democratic Alliance.
Honorable Member, are you suggesting that I highlight those issues? Chair, I think this will really warrant a written submission on these issues, perhaps with the political parties specific, because I don't want to cause commotion of
That's all right.
political parties saying,
That's fine. Yes, Saba, Mama, it's all right. The right question, yeah. No problem. Sisi, for an example, your relationship once again with the company secretary, Geldenhuys, she said when she appeared in front of this committee that she did not have a good relationship with you, and that affected your processing of the public protector's report as the board chairperson, primarily because you did not take her advice seriously, or at times her advice was ignored. What is your take on that one?
I don't recall any of the differences we've had, except when she said she's resigning, because she had a big issue with the deputy chair of the interim board. And to mediate between the two, I called her and said, you are not resigning, because I personally understand the role of the company secretary. And I did say to her, you're doing a good job. She's doing a good job in SABC. I must really not lie about her. I'm very proud of what she does, and I was the one coercing her not to go.
Thank you, ma'am. I think chairperson is a statement, not a question. I think from where I'm sitting, I think Mama or Sisi, you were given a true pass by the previous board chairperson to actually finalize the appointment of not honorable, Mr. Hlaudi Mtsweneng in the meeting that took place in July 2014. But that's a discussion we can have outside. That's my view.
Honorable Matlanga.
Chair, thank you, Madam Tshabalala. No, there is something that we need to correct with regards to the name that you have mentioned, because later you came back and said a political party, but you had mentioned the name Yakan Nzimande. Did I understand you to be saying, because you said Nzimande and then later you said the minister did not call you? You remember that thing? Yeah?
I mentioned Nzimande on a specific separate issue. I mentioned that the Communist Party, I don't know whether this person was spokesperson or deputy of what in the Communist Party, did influence me to agree with Minister Karim and to agree to the set-top box control matter. And I said, but how do you get involved in the matter? And there were subsequent public insinuations by the minister, who's also a Communist Party leader, around SABC. That's public information. He's made a lot of insinuations. And Mr. Vavi, by the way, also alleged that SABC is corrupt and also. So, yes, it is.
No. If you're talking about public insinuations, it's something that everybody can listen to. But I thought you were saying he called you. So you're saying he didn't call you. Thank you.
No, thanks.
The multi-choice deal, what is that? Tell us briefly. You sold the assets of the SABC to your competitor. Is that the wrong understanding? Is it the wrong understanding?
It is the wrong understanding.
What did you do?
SABC has got a lot of agreements and contracts with other broadcasters, including ETV. MultiChoice has got a lot of agreements with Al Jazeera, hence we see other news of other countries. So, first of all, Honorable Member Mahlangu, I would like to express my concern over where SABC is in terms of agreements and contracts and the public opinion which jeopardize SABC's position in accessing either money to execute certain things or legitimate partnership where they want to collaborate. The initial stage of bringing this thing on board started way before, as I mentioned. When it graduated to this level, the major challenge was funding and financing of certain things within SABC. I can attest with
fine,
evidence, yes.
Because I don't want a long story.
Yes.
All I wanted is, what is the implication of this deal? What is in this deal? What is this thing that is in this deal?
This thing in this deal suggests that SABC and MultiChoice agree to a particular multi-channel operations matters. We were in disagreement on two clauses when this matter was presented to the board. We said the must carry part is a challenge, and the prospect of having well, I would call it encryption because it's called many names, we have a problem with. Our basis stemmed from what operators have debated on their own and escalated to the committee of the board. They had their own deliberation before it was elevated to the board. When it came to the CEO, there were certain allegations made that maybe the CEO has agreed to it because she had a shareholder at ETV. So there were a host of rumors and untrue stories. But what I would like to say, Mr. Honorable Member, is that we exploited all governance structures, including a senior independent counsel for an opinion, including the state law advisor, who was invited by Mr. Karim to come to the board. And Mr. Karim got disappointed because he had already given us a legal opinion on matters, and we're comfortable.
Am I correct to understand that that deal denies the public access to the archives freely? In other words, through that deal, people have to pay to have access to what is contained in that public asset.
Yeah, to a large extent, I would take what you are saying prior to us having a 404 channel. Now, the SABC has been using the DSTV platform for a while. Hence, we have all Nigerians raving about the soapies and all other countries saying SABC is doing a good job. So the use of the platform of SABC by MultiChoice has been a concerted effort to sell SABC outside the country. So the establishment of 404...
Is it free? Is it accessible to everyone?
No, MultiChoice, by the way, gave SABC 550 million to offset what we were encountering in terms of establishment of the channel.
I'm talking about the public. I'm not talking about your company.
Yeah.
I'm talking about the ordinary South African. Are they able to access this thing that they were able to access before the deal?
Yes, ordinary committees, you know, for me, the issues like issue of encryption, for argument's sake, it's like buying a door, putting a key on the door, but not using it. We are not in a good financial position to even do that because it also calls for SABC to have a call center, to have good technicians who will explain to indigenous communities or literate people about what this is all about. So we did not want all that. We did not want encryption. We didn't want to jeopardize ordinary people's view because there is millions or billions of money sitting in the National Treasury to subsidize the poor. So what we are saying is that we are reversing the process, in other words, not to consider the poor people, yet that is dedicated for the poor people. So agreement was reached on the basis of this does not frustrate the content of the SABC. Instead, it gives us the leverage to popularize SABC.
Earlier on, there was a discussion. Earlier on, there was a discussion from my colleagues with regards to the position of the COO. Now, the court has made a particular ruling recently. And the person actually has been put in this situation by yourself as chair. So you've put that person in a very precarious situation. Now the court has made a ruling, and that person is affected. And yourselves who made that decision are free. I mean, what is your take?
Your honorable member, I did not follow all the court proceedings after I left. However, I think that the court is challenging the board after me for allowing Mr. Motsoeneng to, a few people allowed Mr. Motsoeneng to be appointed in a position which he initially came from, not the COO position. The COO position, all necessary avenues were exploited to arrive at a decision. This one, I think there was not a full complement of the board making that decision. As a result, I think that was the reason behind the court saying they should have not put Claudi back in the position. That was done unlawfully.
Honorable Clear.
I would just quickly, briefly like to start with the multi-choice deal. First of all, you were part of a meeting. I'm sorry, closer to the mic. You were part of a meeting dated 30 July 2013, where the multi-choice deal was discussed. That was still when the interim board was in place. Now, you would have known then, or can you please tell us, who initiated this? And I mean, you have elaborated quite extensively about what your view was. From our perspective, we are arguing that it is actually illegal because it flies in the face of the Broadcasting Act. Part of the deal is also to let go of the sole propriety of the SABC's archives. So there was subsequently a meeting, one of the very first meetings when the permanent board was established, and Mr. Naidu, a former board member, offered assistance to have this contract reviewed. But there was no appetite for it. Can you please explain why you did not lead the board to at least look and consider the options, because apparently Mr. Motsoeneng signed, and did you give him authority to sign on behalf of the SABC?
Thank you, honorable member, for the question. The issue of corporate governance structures being ignored has never existed even on this matter. What transpired is that both the operators of SABC and the operators of MultiChoice have had a discussion from many years ago. Why it now became a critical matter of a decision was purely on the basis that the competition is way ahead of us. We are not having this 404, which has been dreamt about for so many years. So if you ask me whether it was the MultiChoice or SABC who brought each other to discuss the matter, it has been discussed many years. And I've got evidence here which I can show to the Ad Hoc Committee as to what were the frustrating elements for SABC not to have the 404. And largely, they were around the funding, of course, the sensitivity of SABC information, which has been broadly mentioned, that the archives issue, in fact, the archive issues are a big issue, which I think I would encourage this committee to trace the history of the SABC archives. Many accusations have been leveled of individuals that are taking and using it in many ways. So this has absolutely no weight on this particular matter. This is an agreement. Both parties agree, and they didn't agree because they want to sell the archives or anything. It was purely on the basis that we as SABC have an agenda. Our agenda is to have a 404 channel, but we're not having it.
May I please just proceed now? Yeah. We are just concerned that there was no appetite for a review, which in fact was considered possible, but let's park that case. I would like to move on to other issues, and I find it very difficult to understand what I hear from you and what you say. You work on the basis of facts, and you wanted Nkunu attorneys to bring you the facts, and that was the basis for your dissatisfaction with the public protector's report. But I must say, I find it very difficult. If I go through the Nkunu report, it is essentially dissecting the public protector's report. And it's not providing additional evidence. It's just providing the history of Mr. Motswaneng's appointment. And by the way, the issue is not whether he had a matric, and Dr. Ngubane entertained the committee earlier about all his qualities, etc. It's the issue of public trust, because there was evidence of symbols that were provided to the SABC, whilst he knew all along that he did not obtain a matric. Now, why was that done? And on what basis can the Nkunu report tell us about Mr. Kloppers and about everything else without any evidence of that? So just as far as that, but let's go to the detail. Firstly, you said you wanted to work with hard evidence, but you said that it's not true that members of staff were purged. And in fact, if you go to the Public Protector's report, there were 14 who complained, but she could find evidence of Mr. Motswaneng's involvement in only 7 of the 14 cases. Secondly, you said some members of the board did not like Claudi, but the minutes of the meeting of the 7th of July reflect that members objected on the basis of the Public Protector report and on the basis of the fact that there was no due process followed. So it was not a personal matter. Now, thirdly, I just wanted to say, you said that the interim report was discussed by the interim board. But on page 10 of the Public Protector report, it is stated very unambiguously that you acknowledged that you excluded other board members. How can you explain these contradictions? And I would like to add one additional one. You said the notice of the 7th of July, when you were asked about it, you said, yes, there were 2 positions that were discussed, etc. Fact is, we received a copy of the SMS that was sent out, and 2 items. By the way, it was sent out on the 6th of July, about 24 hours before the meeting was scheduled. There was evidence that it was 2 matters. It said the COO matter, whatever that may have implied, and the Public Protector report. So it was not relating to the CFO appointment, etc., etc. So if you look at these contradictions from where we are, you know, what you have told us and what we find in the documentation before us, how do you expect us to judge your perception of the role of this committee and our serious attempt to get down to the bottom of the truth in all these matters? How would you view our concern that you were maybe not 100% honest with us in this meeting?
Thank you very much, Honorable Member. There are issues that you raised which I have not even said a word about it, issues of paging. I have not mentioned anything around paging. However, your request for...
Sorry, Chairperson, but it's not true. Ms. Tshabalala deliberately referred to the cleaning out of the staff, and she said there was no such matter. And there's evidence of that in the Public Protector's report. And it was not a matter of point blank, just referring to staff members. There's evidence of those that the Public Protector could find evidence on, and not in the other cases. So I just think we should get the records straight.
Thank you, Honorable Member. Answering your question could come in different facets. One facet is saying, as you mentioned, how do you apply your oversight role to deduce what is a fact and what is true and what you can challenge? And I fully concur with you that it's correct to go that route, because when you apply an oversight role, you don't want to speak about the rumors. I mean, when I heard about what happened when we were called the 8 journalists, I was shocked to hear that people gave answers that suggest that employees evaluate the board, because the board gets evaluated differently. But be as it may, I think it's important to deal with facts in Parliament, because when you follow the media, I think it's important that the chair of the Portfolio Committee on Communication should engage the shareholder as well as the board or the CEO of the organization instantly to assess whether what has been projected in public, is it true or it's not true? Because some of the print media insinuations are appalling. I mean, and we've seen it over the years. We've seen how they make a non-fact and make it a fact. So I request that the board must be exposed on facts and share this thing with the chairperson of the Portfolio Committee. It's very important. Otherwise, anybody can blame anybody. I can blame parliamentarians, but I don't believe that I should be spending all my time to cast judgment on people and say negative things about it. I don't believe in it, because it doesn't build the nation. But I believe that if you want facts on me or want facts on SABC, the chair and the CEO, through the right protocols, should come and account, even to the chair only of the Portfolio Committee, if time does not permit, to say, see, Chair, this is the story publicly, but these are real facts. I think it's very, very important. But again, on the Public Protector report, as I mentioned, Honorable Member Killian, is that you have your viewpoints, and as Honorable Ngubane has mentioned, this is the view that he holds. But the board also had its view, and I think that should be respected, that a complement of a full board disagreed and agreed, because at some stage we had to vote, which is not a favorable favorable thing for every board to take decisions based on votes. But when we have motivated the fact and it doesn't go anywhere, the onus is on the chairperson of the board to request that members should vote on a position. And those that lose to persuade the board on their views, they must not go and say publicly that it was the chair, because when we go to the court of law to prove the facts, you will realize that there was a process of voting and there were people who disagreed, which is a normal thing. We don't have to hate one another for it. But what I totally disliked with the person who was very unhappy with multi-choice, he started going direct to the legal department to intimidate them, to give them all contracts. I said, no, you can't do that. I had to call him on the side to say, look, we can't do that. May I request that you deal through the company secretary, and the company secretary, if need be, ask me to come and assist. So it was never a situation where there are favorite people, they are looking. I mean, one of the people who can attest to some of the things is the gentleman that acted in the position of the CEO. Sorry, I forgot his name. who was from time to time following the decisions of the board, very articulate. I was very impressed with his acting position at that time. And I was happy with the execution of decisions then. So it was the full complement of the board that either took that direction or that direction. Thank you, Ms. Kellen, if that answers your question.
Honourable Saki.
I'm not sure, Chairperson, that the person in front of us is responding to questions. And you're not going to educate us, ma'am. I think there's one thing that you must know. It's not just a normal portfolio committee that you used to be engaging and trying to educate them. We're dealing with facts here. The colleague raises a point, and the point that required a response from you. Now, the meeting of the 18th March, the March meeting, a meeting where a decision had to be taken on appointment of the COO. That's 7 July. In that meeting, page 6 of the meeting, paragraph 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, paragraph 6, you raise your own concern around the issues of a legal opinion. And in fact, we are insisting that there must be a process to clarify this position that you wanted to take, which is a position that most members who are law-abiding in that board, law-abiding in the board, would not want you to flood the law, but to follow what policy says. You agree with them on that point. You then say that there must be a process of legal opinion, and the lawyer in that meeting says that he needs to be given enough time, because this matter came as an agent matter. He needs to be given enough time so that he can go and look at other case study. That's my first question. I want to hear what is your view on that position of you. What is your view on that? Because you, in the meeting, confirmed the legal opinion. That is very important before that decision is finalized.
Okay. Thanks, Honorable Member Chauke. First of all, I have to apologize if I sound like I'm giving a lecture. I was giving this response saying, this is my suggestion going forward, to a question posed by Honorable Member Killian. Sorry. So if I sounded like I'm instructive, I apologize. Secondly, the issue of disagreement, Honorable Member Chauke, in boards is a norm in every board. You will find people who do not agree with you as chair. Through my experience, I've had that, I've disagreed with issues, but all I'm saying is that...
My point, I want you to be specific, please, because we don't have enough time. Yeah. The issue is that the disagreement here was in the case of the law. What the law says is not the general disagreement. Those who are saying we have to follow the law. Honorable Mahlangu raises this point that you took a wrong decision that has now been confirmed by the court. It's irregular. The public protector found that to be irregular. What does it mean if we were to look at the issue of a public finance? How do you deal with the issues of irregular expenditure again? Because whatever that salaries has been occurred in the payment of the salaries of this person, it means that it's irregular itself. What then happened if that has been found to be irregular?
Honorable Member, I don't know if you are referring to the issue of failure to abide by the law on the issue of Hlaudi, or we are talking about the General Public Protector Agreement in the board as to which this... Sorry? Oh, sorry. I'm not too sure if you are referring to the issue of non-abidance to the law on a specific matter of Mr. Motsoeneng, or you're talking about...
Dealing with the issue of the COO, ma'am.
Yeah. Oh, yes.
Yes, that's the issue.
In my view, the court is not dealing with the issue of the COO pertaining to his appointment as the COO. It's dealing with the issue of, in my view, I've not read the whole judgment, and I could be wrong, but I think it's dealing with the issue of the recent board placing Mr. Claudio Mtsweni in a position that he is alleged that he occupied before. So I'm not too sure of facts, and up until I have the
Can
facts.
I ask you another question? That's fine, leave that one. The avenues that were, you spoke about the avenues that were followed, the appointment of Mr. Claudi, internal avenues, which other members did not like him at the end. What were those avenues and who was leading those avenues that identified him, either who was leading or championing this appointment?
There are a number of people who actually called me to tell me that they don't like Claudi. They asked if there could be anything used to get rid of Claudi. Now, I can't be a leader that is subjected to such things because Claudi is an employee of SABC.
Okay, no,
and
that's fine.
there's a
Thank you.
CEO.
Thank you on that point. Who are those people, in fact? Just tell, because we are under oath here and we're not going to be talking hearsay. I want, as we do that, I want you again to speak on the issue of the politicians. It's a general statement. You are dealing with politicians that are here. I want you to tell us which politicians that were instructing you to fire certain people. You must say it in the meeting as much as we have make mention of Mr. Nzimande, we've made mention of the Communist Party. In the ANC and the DA, you just spoke general. Just be specific so that we now know that within the ANC, these are the people that were instructing you. In the DA, these were the people who were instructing you to do certain things. Because you are under oath, and that's why I have said that, Chair, we are not just dealing with a normal portfolio committee that you are used to for so many years that you can go there, say as you want. It's a different matter here. We want to get facts so that tomorrow we are able to correct the problems that are currently happening at SABC. We are not going to resolve this thing with this attitude. We are not going to find exactly where the problem is. And you are seated there to be able to tell us today, as the previous chair. And again, tell me again, the third one, why did you leave SABC as a chairperson?
Okay, Honorable Member, let me start by saying, I did mention earlier that I am disadvantaged because I do not have much information to substantiate on various issues. However, the issue on politicians' involvement, I literally said cross. Other matters are written, others are verbal, others are through, communicating with certain people. So it is not in my nature to engage politicians to fight amongst themselves or to take each other to court.
No, we're not talking about your nature, ma'am.
I will not disclose. I reserve my right. I will not disclose.
You will not disclose?
Yes.
We'll then have to call you again, under oath again, and make you to speak on those issues. Because you have made a serious statement that you have made, and therefore, this committee will call you again to speak on those issues. Lastly, did Parliament say you must go and break the law? You did make mention of Parliament, that you're under pressure from Parliament. Did Parliament instruct you to go and break the law in the appointment of the said person?
I think, Chair.
I think already you said that you'd make a written response, a written submission to that effect on this matter. So you can't now turn around and say you reserve your right, you can't what. Am I wrong, Chairperson? We're still expecting that written submission because it deals precisely with the issues that Honorable Chauke, among others, has asked. Thank you.
Thank you. I do confirm that. I said I'll make written submissions on what transpired during my tenure.
Around the political interference. That's fine. We'll give you a deadline by which to give it to us.
Chair, there's a point about her leaving SABC.
No, we're not. We're dealing with one at a time. We're talking about that.
Okay,
one.
no,
That
that's
was
fine.
long
She's
before
still coming on that one. Yes. Thank you.
On that one, there's agreement that you'll give it to us in writing, and that it'll arrive at this office before close of business on Monday, because we start our report on Monday.
Thank you, Chair. To answer the honorable member's question on why did I leave SABC, it was purely on the basis of the negative media around my credentials. There was a probe on my credentials, and I wish to reserve my rights not to tell because the matter is under legal review.
Sorry, Chairperson.
No.
She's becoming lower.
Okay, just please speak into the mic, ma'am. I thought you wanted to intervene. Please speak in the mic.
Okay, thank you, Chair. I'm answering a question from Honorable Member Chauke around why did I leave SABC. In 2014, I think it was during the World Cup, there was insinuations by the media that I do not have a junior degree. And it went around, in fact, it went around publicly, you all know about it. So when I tried to address my matter with Parliament, with the chairperson Moloi Moruba, I just found a very, very negative attitude of not even wanting to listen to me. But I understood because, I think there are issues that people had before. In fact, I did receive even an information from politicians that there was a plan not to have you as chairperson. There was a lineup that this will be minister, this will be chair, so you are the wrong chairperson.
Chair,
Can I substantiate?
Can I just
because,
ask something as we close? I'm not going to be coming back because I think what should happen, Chair, is that the issue that it's now coming up is that there are more politicians that are involved in the statement that is made now by the witness before us. More politicians. In that report that will come to Parliament, can we add this one now? Can we add this one? She must add this one that now deals with the issues of who was going to be minister, who was going to be. She must make mention of those names in that confidential information within a period of time, Chair. You have to determine the time period because we're not going to be waiting until next month or what. We just have to be specific. Then I'm done, then I'm not going to come back.
All right. No, please help us summarize the two issues that you would like Ma'am Tshabalala to put in writing. The one of them, as I recall, would have been the general statement that she made of political interference, DA, ANC, and party, and so on. That was the one. Which is the second one, Honorable Chauke? No,
That one is the one now that they informed by politicians that she was not even going to be appointed chairperson of the board, yes.
All right. Okay, could you give us those two in writing, ma'am? You don't have to respond to them. You can just give us, as you understand them, in writing. And as we indicated, we start writing our report very soon, if you could give that to us very soon. I've just got two questions, ma'am. Can we go back to what I understood the argument to be, or the point to be between you and Ms. Van Dam around the meeting of the 7th of July? At that meeting of the 7th of July, where there was this decision to appoint the COO, how did you explain to us what brought about that the minister was at that meeting? How did the minister happen to be in the vicinity? Could you please repeat how you explained that to us? First of all, you concur the minister was there. What brought the minister there? How did you explain it to Ms. Van Dam, or how did you understand it? What was the minister doing there, and how did she get there?
I'm also prepared to bring evidence to that because we correspond in letters or by telephone with the minister. However, if I recall, the minister was concerned about the failure of SABC board to rise up to the deadline that were given on the issue of the public report. As well, because we were dealing with the filling up of these senior positions, Minister was also concerned that where are we with the process of filling up these positions? Because there's a lot of demand from the SABC side that we fill up those positions.
So from your statement, because of the minister was concerned, she thought she'd come and visit you guys so that she could get the hands-on report back. Is that what
She requested to engage on this matter, and in our discussion, it was only a good idea that rather than speaking to me about this issue, because it's not only my issue, it's the board issue, it would be best that after the deliberations of the board, she joins the board to express all the concerns that they have.
I wanted clarity on that one, ma'am, because, and I'm hoping, Ms. Van Dam, this clarifies what maybe we were under disputing just now. You know, the minutes of the 7th of July reads, the chairman, being yourself, clarified that the minister's presence was by her invitation, your invitation. That's why I asked the question specifically. Did the minister, out of her own volition, come there because she wanted to ensure that we conclude on this matter? And I think that's what Van Dam was asking initially. The question that I'm asking you, are these minutes an accurate reflection? Is it you that invited the minister? Because that's what the minutes say.
Can I correct that, Chair? I did not invite the minister. It was an issue that the minister was discussing with me and putting pressure on meeting the deadlines. As a minister, we cannot deprive the board from this conversation. As a result, we concluded, the two of us, that let's get the board to decide on the matter, then you can come to the board. And by the way, if I may just share with this committee, it was not the first instance where ministers, let me put it that way, decide to come to the board. SABC has had series of meetings with Mr. Karim trying to push us to agree to the inclusion of the encryption on the set-top box control. It was his meetings that he decides the board must convene, I'm coming with my team. And there's a record of that.
No, I don't think the point that I was raising was whether the minister should be there or not. It's a more important and fundamental question. Somebody gives Parliament a set of minutes that says the chairman, or we could change it to say, Ellen Tshabalala clarified that the minister's presence was by Ellen Tshabalala's. That's the minutes that we get. Now, hold on, listen to what I'm saying. That's the minutes that we get. We didn't pick these things up in the street. We asked the company secretary to give us a set of minutes, who is the custodian. We got another set of minutes from an ex-board member, Rachel Kalidas. Those are the source documents from which we work, ma'am. And you, in coming to us, says to us, you know, actually those minutes are not an accurate reflection. That's what you're saying. They're not an accurate reflection because you didn't invite the minister, as is reflected in a set of minutes. Now, it raises a whole can of worms in terms of those documents that we received from the SABC. How much weight must we put to them? That's why I've asked you the question, just to clarify, because we've got the minutes. The chairman clarified, so I'm not worried about why the minister was there. That is a fight that I think Van Dam and them are fighting. My one is, we in fact summons documents. We summons documents. We get given 300 or 700 documents the eve before we must present. You're the very last witness. And what seems to be coming out from what you're saying is, in fact, these minutes that we are talking about are not a true reflection of what transpired in the meeting of the 7th of July. So that's my problem. That is my problem, because how much weight can we put on those documents? Or do we go back and ask Mrs. Geldenhuys, is it Geldenhuys? There is a Geldenhuys. Do we go and ask Mrs. Geldenhuys, why did you give us a set of minutes that the chairperson, and I would assume you would have signed those minutes, a chairperson attaches her signature to a set of minutes that doesn't reflect what has transpired. Parliament will go and prepare a report on the basis of these documents. You have all the right then to come back and say, but actually that line that you've got there, ad hoc committee that I invited, is not true, and yet we've picked it up from this document. So do you understand what the difficulty is for me? So I just want to get clarity, because we'll have to find a way of sorting this out. That sentence that says the chairperson, and we're talking about the 7th of July, the chairperson clarified that the minister's presence was by her invitation. Is that not an accurate reflection of what happened on the 7th of July, ma'am?
Thank you, Chair. Once more, I have to clarify. Chair, I'm not saying I did not ask the company secretary to organize a meeting. I did.
Talking about the invitation of the minister to that meeting.
No, can I just take you through what transpired? The minister called. I can't remember if there's a letter to that effect, but I will check that. And I've got complete trust on the secretary, by the way. I believe what is written and where I append my signature. I have read the minutes and I understand what it means. The minister complained about the delays and she asked, what could it be? I said, Minister, the issue of public protector and the issue of appointments of directors rests entirely on the committee of the board as well as the board. And for that reason, I don't feel it's adequate that I'm the one that has to respond to it. For that reason, it would be better that I assemble the board and raise your concerns, but it would be also helpful that if you come and express urgency. And by the way, Chair, there were instances that when we convene a board for some such issues, board members either don't turn out, so there were unnecessary delays. By either the absence, the committee did not sit to deliberate on the matter. So I shared Minister's concerns. I was also worried that we will not deliver on time. So I'm not divorcing myself altogether from the issue. I did append my signature based on the discussions that we had, and I did suggest to Minister that, Minister, maybe it will be in order that you come and express your concerns in the full board. Thank you.
So for our own purposes, when we deliberate on this matter, there was the issue of the appointment of the COO. It was an urgent matter to be resolved. You, through whichever means, ultimately said to the minister, please come to the meeting and share with us the urgency, support, that type of thing. And the minister duly came to the meeting. That's how we should understand what happened on the 7th. All right. No, that's fine. Ms. Killian, when she referred to that matter, and the company secretary confirmed it. You know, it's such a hefty matter. You yourself have now alluded to the fact that you've asked the minister to come because we want to resolve it. And yet senior people in the board get invited by way of an SMS that says, please come to a meeting, we're going to discuss the COO. That's all. Not the appointment or deadlock mechanism breaking. Come to the meet. No support documents, by the way. No support documents. People get a SMS on the 6th at 7:15, if memory serves me right, saying tomorrow come to a meeting, we're going to discuss the COO. No support documents, nothing else. It's a matter that you now say to us, Ma'am Tshabalala, was a matter where there was a need to finalize this matter urgently. Go one step further and ask the minister to come and support us. When I say us, I'm saying the board in that matter. Is that how we conduct our business as the thing? I mean, I'm painting a picture here that says this is something that we've got to resolve today, and board members get given an invite via an SMS. So were you aware that board members were invited by an SMS? And did you think that that was conducive to a positive discussion, a positive interaction between members? You know that when you come to Parliament, we say to you, for instance, don't come here unless you give us documents 7 days before the time. This is an SMS 2 weeks, not even 2 weeks, 24 hours before the time. Could you explain why it happened in this fashion?
Thank you, Chair. Chair, you will note that in the board charter, it is clearly prescribed how many times the board must meet. However, you'll also note that the board has met much more times in the board, not because board members wanted board fees. It was because of the issues that SABC board had to deal with. And I'm sad to say that it took us away from our personal responsibilities to focus on improving situations in the board. And I'm also sad that men and women in SABC who had to be operating even after hours to ensure that we meet the deadlines, we deliver on what we said, feel aggrieved. Others actually said, this is not worth it. And typical example of what I'm saying leading to future boards of SABC. I think we have created a situation where people do not want to take positions in SABC in the manner we are dealing with issues. When we advertise for a position of the GCEO recently, you'll be shocked to see the number of people who withdrew their applications. We had a plan to get a female CEO, try to get a female CEO, without ignoring the type of CEO that we have discussed and the type of CEO that we want. Many women withdrew because they felt that's a guillotine. When you go there, you get insulted, you don't get support and all sorts of things. So all I'm saying is that the board met many times for reasons of ensuring that they achieve what they want to achieve. And I do think that it's a similar board. When I looked at the minutes of the previous board, I realized that they were also going through the same rough patch. Committees had to meet at a short notice. They had to apply their minds quickly. They had to make decisions quickly. So it was not purely for a devious reasons of having a caucus with minister trying to push any agenda, definitely not. But it was purely because we are under pressure. When we go to parliament, we must have achieved certain objectives. Thank you.
No, that's fine. That's fine. The last point from my side, Ma'am Tshabalala, what do you understand to be the archives of the SABC? What would you understand when somebody says to you, the archives of the SABC? What do you understand? Because there's this whole debate that we're going to have to, when we write our report, defend one way or leave out. But what would you understand to be the archives of the SABC?
Thank you, Chair. In the context of what is archives for SABC, it's basically all the information that SABC has invested in terms of accumulation of events and occurrences. And that, even before I joined SABC, I was curious to see how do they have this capability of storing so much information, because it was videos from the previous government, and how do they keep this information in a manner that future citizens of the country benefit from them, and how is it used?
Okay, that's fine.
Thank you.
So by the time you left, where was this material? The archive material. When you left the SABC, where was the archive material? Was it, or who was the custodian of the archive material?
We entrusted that responsibility with the sorry. No, I'm talking for SABC. I apologize.
Say we were entrusted, or?
Oh, I was saying we entrusted the issue of archives with the PBS committee, and I must say they were very aggressive in gathering facts on the archives.
So that channel, I don't know if it's 165 or 161, Mzansi Magic, that you wouldn't regard as SABC archives? Would you?
I do think that it forms part of the archives of SABC. Thank you.
All right. It forms part of the archives of SABC. The Public Broadcasting Act says that the objectives of the corporation are to establish and maintain libraries and archives. What you've said to us now is that those are archives. Ours is to establish and to maintain the archives. Channel Mzansi Magic is sitting on DSTV. How do we reconcile it sitting on DSTV to us establishing and maintaining? Because we don't own DSTV, do we? So the question that I'm trying to ask is, you agree that channel 165 or 161, I'm not sure what it is, that forms part of the archives. You agree that we are not the custodians of that material as we speak, because it's sitting on DSTV 165, unless you're saying we own DSTV 165. I'm trying to understand that if we don't own it, if we don't own that channel, the material is sitting on that channel, how do we control that thing? If we don't own it, how do we control it? And if we are not in control of it, are we not in conflict with the Public Broadcast Act that says we must establish and maintain? Do we not run the risk of having gone foul with this act by your own admission that we don't own 165? We have material at 165. And therefore, we are within our rights as this committee to say that whoever took that decision with multi-choice, in fact, went against the Public Broadcast Management Act. Would we be correct to say that? Not Public Broadcast Management Act, the Public Broadcasting Act. Just on that part of it, because my family don't have money to pay for DSTV. My family. They never will be able to see that stuff that is there. Never be able to see it because they don't have access to DSTV, and millions of South Africans who do not have money to pay DSTV don't have access to it. Our objective says go and maintain, or go and establish and maintain it, and the board under certainly not you that initiated, but you implemented it. In your term, the board then goes and does the exact opposite to what the Public Broadcast Management Act says. How do you explain that to these members of Parliament so that we are able to accurately reflect in our reports exactly what happened to this thing called the libraries and archives of Parliament? Do you want to make a comment? Because whether you comment or not, we will, on this understanding that I'm giving you, we are going to make a recommendation. So this is an opportunity for you to influence what our recommendation will be on this matter. Do you care to respond to that matter?
Thank you, Chair. I'll just give you my view, and it's my honest view.
Chair. Sorry, Chair. I think you were speaking on the issue of copyright and also intellectual property with regard to what we are saying. I think you'll be answering.
Thank you very much. It does have an element of that, but I think the Chair is correct to say it's a cause for concern that if the platform that profiles SABC's archives, what is being brokered? I think, Chair, that's what do you understand it to be brokering between DSTV and SABC? Chair, my own understanding and what has been led by PCS, PBS committee was that the challenge of SABC not being able to use a wider platform which DSTV provides is a challenge in terms of viewers that we want to attract for SABC. In fact, there is a complement for SABC if we have our channels there. But let me tell you what was also my concern, and I raised my concern in the board, that it does appear to me that we are very archaic in the manner in which we think. Because when the CEO justified that the soapies that we have repeats of the soapies. I'm just citing one of the examples. And in other words, we must see Mupeme, whether the storyline still makes sense in the current circumstances or not. I really did not find that working. So the demand from young people especially was that give us a fresh content. There are new things that we want to learn. And we're becoming irrelevant because we repeat Mpeme when the community is so advanced in other things. So how do we then bridge the gap that we keep our archives, but we don't reuse it to the disadvantage of the business, but we bring new content. I think the emergence of other channels that were in the platform, were in the mind of SABC, became popularized on the platform of DSTV for the simple reason that we wanted to attract viewers, because if they see it's Mzansi, they find out Mzansi is SABC, that has got a leverage and a benefit for SABC. So there was a discussion at operations level, Chair, without trying to be firm in my response, to say the partnerships that we develop with other broadcasters, the PBS, PCS must weigh whether it benefits SABC, and they must come and present to the committee. Thank you.
I raised that question, ma'am, because the minister, when she appeared here on the 14th of December, says this matter that we're talking about, was cleared by ICASA, the regulator which exonerated the SABC and MultiChoice because no national archives were sold to MultiChoice. We need to understand this. This is what the minister said to us. Now, I think it's sentiment to say whether it was sold, whether it was borrowed. The fact of the matter is, as you are saying, and I agree with you, the majority of South Africans do not have access to it. You agree with me on that one? All right. I'm just raising that one because we would need to clarify the statement of the minister where she says no archives were sold. And that was the debate that we were having at the time. The fact of the matter is we don't have control of that material. You agree that those were or could be regarded as part of the library and the archives. And I'm glad that you're here, sir. I'm glad that you're here because this is in black and white. So somebody between the two of you would have to come back and influence us, because we will take a decision on the basis of what we understand here about the archives, and it might be totally incorrect. So we are asking both parties to come back, not yourself necessarily, ma'am, but certainly the minister, because this is in black and white in the minister's writing, that no archives were sold, so that we can get clarity on that one. Ms. Tshabalala, thank you very much. I'm hoping that we were not too harsh on you and anybody. These people are not necessarily terrible people all the time. But thank you for coming, and once again, thank you for spending the whole day with us, ma'am. As we've said with everybody else, unfortunately, you're at the worst advantage because you've got 24 hours. Basically, if you want to do anything. Everybody else, we've said you've got until whenever. We're going to start our report shortly. Okay, we will adopt it, of course, on the 24th, but being the last one, you have the shortest time. If there's anything you want to tell us that maybe you didn't say it here, or you want to repeat. So that comes to the end of your one. Thank you very much. So that we don't have an unnecessary anxiety out there to my friends in the media, let's quickly explain what's going to happen so that you all get it at the same time. So I'm giving a scoop to all of you and not necessarily to one media house. We've come to the end of our interactions as it is. Between 5 o'clock on Friday and 5 o'clock on Sunday, the team led by Cindy will put together what I'm calling a working document that will summarize everything that we have discussed, heard, received, and so on. We're hoping to get that working document out to members of Parliament by close of business on Monday, these members here. And we've said to the members here that they would have Monday to Wednesday to apply their minds to that working document. Whether they take it to their caucus or they take it to the Sangoma or whatever they do with it, they have until Wednesday to apply their minds. That's Wednesday the 17th, I think, the 18th. On the 19th and the 20th, we will reconvene as committee and try and put a report together, having received inputs from all members. So the 19th and 20th, we will reconvene as the Ad Hoc Committee and put together what I call a draft report. And I'm sure that with the cooperation of all members, we should be able to put a report together that we'll be satisfied with and not necessarily have too many fights about, and then put it formally to the committee on the 24th of January for our buy-in and adoption of the draft report. That draft report will then be sent to affected members. In the main, the executive members of the SABC. But we did hear that Professor Ngubane also wanted a copy, and I suppose you wanted a copy, I suppose, and everybody else. But it's not going to be for comment, because it will be our report. We will give it to members for comment between the 24th of January and give them a deadline up to the 9th of February to comment on that report. On the 14th of February, this committee will reconvene, consider all the comments that we would have received from all the stakeholders who would have responded or commented or whatever the case might be. And on the 14th and the 15th, hopefully, members, we will be able to collate everything and have a report that we can adopt as a final report of this ad hoc committee. And if we do it that way, we would have beaten our deadline of the 28th by about 7 days or 8 days or something like that. Our deadline is the 28th of February. We are confident that we'll be able to present a report on and defend it by the 28th of February. So for everybody else, this is the process. Finish off today, reconvene on Thursday and Friday next week to try and panel beat a report together. On the 24th or the 25th, depending on Ms. Van Dam's availability, because she might have something else, we will adopt a report, a draft report, send it out to the relevant affected, interested parties, give them about 10 days from the 24th until the 9th of February, reconvene on the 14th of February, and on the 14th and 15th of February, we'll lock ourselves up in a room until we come up with a report as these members here. Even if we must sit until midnight, we will panel beat each other until we come up with a report that we all agree to and we will defend. So that really is the process. I'm saying it so that everybody that's listening to us knows that if there's anything that you want to submit to us for consideration, because we're not obliged to take it, but for consideration, you really are not going to be helping yourself if you bring it to us beyond the 24th, because by then we would have had a report. Isn't that correct? Yeah. So anybody that wants to, Ms. Tshabalala or anybody else, if it has not arrived at this committee by close of business on the 23rd, chances of it appearing in our draft report are very slim. So I'm hoping that our friends in the media understand the process going forward. I understand that all those that are listening to us, that are still mulling over what they want to bring to us, understand the deadlines and the time frames. And once again, thank you very much to all of you, Ms. Tshabalala, members of parliament that have had to bear with Cindy for the past 2 weeks or the past 2 years, past 2 months. Thank you very much to our friends in the media. Thank you very much. We will adjourn until Okay, I'll grant you. But we will adjourn until the 18th of, no, the 19th of January in this venue to start panel beating the report. But I see you want to say something, sir.
Chair, I just wanted the chair to clarify the locking, that you said we are going to lock ourselves. Now, I just wanted to clarify that we are not locking anyone out. Yes.
What I'm saying is when I said, you see, yeah, Mr. Mahlangu always helps me. He's my conscience. When I said we'll lock ourselves up, what I meant is we will not move from here until we finalize the report. But it doesn't mean that you are not welcome. We want to be as transparent, as open as possible. So when I said lock up, I'm saying they won't cry that it's late, they want to go and have supper. We are determined to get a report out on the 24th. So I think that's what I meant when I said lock up for those 2 days. And similarly, our lock up on the 14th and 15th. Again, everybody is welcome to sit and watch us in action, fight amongst each other. But all I'm saying is that on the 15th, noma kanjani, we'll have our report out. Having said those things, I wish everybody a very good weekend, and to members of the committee, you'll get something in writing by the end of the day on Sunday, and we'll meet here on Thursday. Meeting is adjourned. End of business on Monday, you'll get something in writing. On Thursday, we meet here.